Welcome back. We're reading 450 from Paddington by Agatha Christie. We're on chapter 13. "It's so very kind of you to have asked me to take tea with you," said Miss Marple to Emma Crackenthorpe. Miss Marple was looking particularly woolly and fluffy, a picture of a sweet old lady. She beamed as she looked round her, at Harold Crackenthorpe in his well-cut dark suit, at Alfred handing her sandwiches with a charming smile, at Cedric standing by the mantelpiece in a ragged tweed jacket, scowling at the rest of his family. "We're very pleased that you could come," said Emma politely. There was no hint of the scene which had taken place after lunch that day when Emma had exclaimed, "Dear me, I quite forgot. I told Miss Islesbarrow that she could bring her old aunt to tea today." "Put her off," said Harold brusquely. "We've still got a lot to talk about. We don't want strangers here." "Let her have tea in the kitchen or somewhere with the girl," said Alfred. "Oh, no, I couldn't do that," said Emma firmly. "That would be very rude." "Oh, let her come," said Cedric. "We can draw her out a little about the wonderful Lucy. I should like to know more about that girl, I must say. I'm not sure that I trust her. Too smart by half." "She's very well connected and quite genuine," said Harold. "I've made it my business to find out. One wanted to be sure, poking about and finding the body the way she did." "If we only knew who this damned woman was," said Alfred. Harold added angrily, "I must say, Emma, that I think you are out of your senses going and suggesting to the police that the dead woman might be Edmund's French girlfriend. It will make them convinced that she came here and that probably one or other of us killed her." "Oh, no, Harold, don't exaggerate." "Harold's quite right," said Alfred. "Whatever possessed you, I don't know. I've a feeling I'm being followed everywhere I go by plainclothesmen." "I told her not to do it," said Cedric. Then Quimper backed her up. "It's no business of his," said Harold angrily. "Let him stick to pills and powders and national health." "Oh, do stop quarreling," said Emma wearily. "I'm really glad this old Miss What's-her-name is coming to tea. It will do us all good to have a stranger here and be prevented from going over and over the same things again and again. I must go and tidy myself up a little." She left the room. "This Lucy Islesbarrow," said Harold, and stopped. "As Cedric says, it's odd that she should nose about in the barn and go opening up a sarcophagus. Really a Herculean task. Perhaps we ought to take steps. Her attitude, I thought, was rather antagonistic at lunch." "Leave her to me," said Alfred. "I'll soon find out if she's up to anything." "I mean, why open up that sarcophagus?" "Perhaps she isn't really Lucy Islesbarrow at all," suggested Cedric. "But what would be the point?" Harold looked thoroughly upset. "Oh, damn." They looked at each other with worried faces. "And here's the pestilential old woman coming to tea, just when we want to think." "We'll talk things over this evening," said Alfred. "In the meantime, we'll pump the old lady about Lucy." So Miss Marple had duly been fetched by Lucy and installed by the fire, and she was now smiling up at Alfred as he handed her sandwiches, with the approval she always showed toward a good-looking man. "Thank you so much. May I ask?" "Oh, egg and sardine. Yes, that will be very nice. I'm afraid I'm always rather greedy over my tea. As one gets on, you know, and of course at night only a very light meal. I have to be careful. I shall be 90 next year. Yes, indeed." 87, said Lucy. "No, dear, 90. You young people don't know best about everything." Miss Marple spoke with a faint acidity. Then she turned to her hostess once more. "What a beautiful house you have, and so many beautiful things in it. Those bronzes now, they remind me of some my father bought at the Paris exhibition. Really, your grandfather did. In the classical style, aren't they? Very handsome. How delightful for you having your brothers with you. So often families are scattered. India, though I suppose that's all done with now, and Africa. The West Coast, such a bad climate. 2 of my brothers live in London. That's very nice for you. But my brother Cedric is a painter and lives in Ibiza. one of the Balearic Islands. Painters are so fond of islands, are they not? Said Miss Marple. Chopin, that was Majorca, was it not? But he was a musician. It is Gauguin I'm thinking of. A sad life, misspent, one feels. I myself never really cared for paintings of native women, and although I know he's very much admired, I've never cared for that lurid mustard color. One really feels quite bilious looking at his pictures. She eyed Cedric with a slightly disapproving air. Tell us about Lucy as a child, Miss Marple, said Cedric. She smiled up at him delightedly. Lucy was always so clever, she said. Yes, you were, dear. Now, don't interrupt. Quite remarkable at arithmetic. Why, I remember when the butcher overcharged me for topside of beef. Miss Marple launched full steam ahead into reminiscences of Lucy's childhood, and from there to experiences of her own in village life. The stream of reminiscence was interrupted by the entry of Brian and the boys, rather wet and dirty as a result of an enthusiastic search for clues. Tea was brought in, and with it came Dr. Quimper, who raised his eyebrows slightly as he looked round after acknowledging his introduction to the old lady. Hope your father's not under the weather, Emma. Oh, no. That is, he was just a little tired this afternoon. Avoiding visitors, I expect, said Miss Marple with a roguish smile. How well I remember my own dear father. Got a lot of old pussies coming? He would say to my mother. Send my tea into the study. Very naughty about it, he was. Please don't think, began Emma, but Cedric cut in. It's always tea in the study when his dear sons come down. Philosophically to be expected, eh, Doctor? Dr. Quimper, who was devouring sandwiches and coffee cake with the frank appreciation of a man who has usually too little time to spend on his meals, said, Psychology's all right if it's left to the psychologist. Trouble is, everyone is an amateur psychologist nowadays. My patients tell me exactly what complexes and neuroses they're suffering from without giving me a chance to tell them. Thanks, Emma. I will have another cup. No time for lunch today. A doctor's life, I always think, is so noble and self-sacrificing, said Miss Marple. You can't know many doctors, said Dr. Quimper. Leeches, they used to be called, and leeches they often are. At any rate, we do get paid nowadays. The state sees to that. No sending in of bills that you know won't ever be met. Trouble is that all one's patients are determined to get everything they can out of the government, and as a result, if little Jenny coughs twice in the night, or little Tommy eats a couple of green apples, out the poor doctor has to come in the middle of the night. Oh, well, glorious cake, Emma. What a cook you are. Not mine, Miss Islesbarrow's. You make 'em just as good, said Quimper loyally. Will you come and see father? She rose, and the doctor followed her. Miss Marple watched them leave the room. Miss Crackenthorpe is a very devoted daughter, I see, she said. Can't imagine how she sticks the old man myself, said the outspoken Cedric. She has a very comfortable home here, and father is very much attached to her, said Harold quickly. Em's all right, said Cedric, born to be an old maid. There was a faint twinkle in Miss Marple's eye as she said, Oh, do you think so? Harold said quickly, My brother didn't use the term old maid in any derogatory sense, Miss Marple. Oh, I wasn't offended, said Miss Marple. I just wondered if he was right. I shouldn't say myself that Miss Crackenthorpe would be an old maid. She's the type, I think, that's quite likely to marry late in life and make a success of it. Not very likely living here, said Cedric. Never sees anybody she could marry. Miss Marple's twinkle became more pronounced than ever. There are always clergymen and doctors. Her eyes, gentle and mischievous, went from one to another. It was clear that she had suggested to them something that they had never thought of, and of which they did not find overpleasing. Miss Marple rose to her feet, dropping as she did so several little woolly scarves into her bag. The three brothers were most attentive, picking things up. So kind of you, fluted Miss Marple. Oh, yes, and my little blue muffler. Yes, as I say, so kind to ask me here. I've been picturing, just what your home was like, so that I can visualize dear Lucy working here. Perfect home conditions with murder thrown in, said Cedric. Cedric. Harold's voice was angry. Miss Marple smiled up at Cedric. Do you know who you remind me of? Young Thomas Ede, our bank manager's son. Always out to shock people. It didn't do in banking circles, of course, so he went to the West Indies. He came home when his father died and inherited quite a lot of money. So nice for him. He was always better at spending money than making it. Lucy took Miss Marple home. On her way back, a figure stepped out of the darkness and stood in the glare of the headlights just as she was about to turn into the back lane. He held up his hand, and Lucy recognized Alfred Crackenthorpe. That's better, he observed as he got in. Brr, it's cold. I fancied I'd like a nice bracing walk. I didn't. Taking the old lady home all right? Yes, she enjoyed herself very much. One could see that. Funny what a taste old ladies have for any kind of society, however dull. And really, nothing could be duller than Rutherford Hall. 2 days here is about as much as I can stand. How do you manage to stick it out, Lucy? Don't mind if I call you Lucy, do you? Not at all. I don't find it dull. Of course, with me, it's not a permanency. I've been watching you. You're a smart girl, Lucy. Too smart to waste yourself cooking and cleaning. Thank you, but I prefer cooking and cleaning to the office desk. So would I, but there are other ways of living. You could be a freelance. I am. Not this way. I mean, working for yourself, pitting your wits against... Against what? The powers that be. All the silly, pettifogging rules and regulations that hamper us all nowadays. The interesting thing is there's always a way around them if you're smart enough to find it. And you're smart. Come now, does the idea appeal to you? Possibly. Lucy maneuvered her car into the stable yard. Not going to commit yourself? I'd have to hear more. Frankly, my dear girl, I could use you. You've got the sort of manner that's invaluable, creates confidence. Do you want me to help you sell gold bricks? Nothing so risky. Just a little bypassing of the law, no more. His hand slipped up her arm. You're a damned attractive girl, Lucy. I'd like you as a partner. I'm flattered. Meaning nothing doing? Think about it. Think of the fun, the pleasure you'd get out of outwitting all the Sobersides. The trouble is, one needs capital. I'm afraid I haven't got any. Oh, it wasn't a touch. I'll be laying my hands on some before long. My revered papa can't live forever, mean old brute. When he pops off, I lay my hands on some real money. What about it, Lucy? What are the terms? Marriage, if you fancy it. Women seem to, no matter how advanced and self-supporting they are. Besides, married women can't be made to give evidence against their husbands. Not so flattering. Come off it, Lucy. Don't you realize I've fallen for you? Rather to her surprise, Lucy was aware of a queer fascination. There was a quality charm about Alfred, perhaps due to sheer animal magnetism. She laughed and slipped from his encircling arm. This is no time for dalliance. There's dinner to think about. So there is, Lucy, and you're a lovely cook. What's for dinner? Wait and see. You're as bad as the boys. They entered the house, and Lucy hurried to the kitchen. She was surprised to be interrupted in her preparations by Harold Crackenthorpe. Miss Islesborough, can I speak to you about something? Would later do, Mr. Crackenthorpe. I'm rather behindhand. Certainly, certainly. After dinner? Yes, that will do. Dinner was duly served and appreciated. Lucy finished washing up and came out into the hall to find Harold Crackenthorpe waiting for her. Yes, Mr. Crackenthorpe? Shall we come in here? He opened the door of the drawing room and led the way. He shut the door behind her. I shall be leaving early in the morning, he explained, but I want to tell you how struck I've been by your ability. Thank you, said Lucy, feeling a little surprised. I feel that your talents are wasted here. Definitely wasted. Do you? I don't. At any rate, he can't ask me to marry him, thought Lucy. He's got a wife already. I suggest that having very kindly seen us through this lamentable crisis, you call upon me in London. If you'll ring up and make an appointment, I'll leave instructions with my secretary. The truth is that we could use someone of your outstanding ability in the firm. We could discuss fully in what fields your talents would be most ably employed. I can offer you, Miss Islesborough, a very good salary indeed, with brilliant prospects. I think you will be agreeably surprised. His smile was magnanimous. Lucy said demurely, "Thank you, Mr. Crackenthorpe. I'll think about it." "Don't wait too long. These opportunities should not be missed by a young woman anxious to make her way in the world." Again his teeth flashed. "Good night, Miss Islesborough. Sleep well." "Well," said Lucy to herself, "well, this is all very interesting." On her way up to bed, Lucy encountered Cedric on the stairs. "Look here, Lucy, there's something I want to say to you. Do you want me to marry you and come to Uvisa and look after you?" Cedric looked very much taken aback and slightly alarmed. "I never thought of such a thing. I'm sorry, my mistake. I just wanted to know if you have a timetable in the house. Is that all? There's one on the hall table." "You know," said Cedric reprovingly, "you shouldn't go about thinking everyone wants to marry you. You're quite a good-looking girl, but not as good-looking as all that. There's a name for that sort of thing. It grows on you, and you get worse. Actually, you're the last girl in the world I should care to marry. The last girl." "Indeed," said Lucy. "You needn't rub it in. Perhaps you prefer me as a stepmother?" "What's that?" Cedric stared at her, stupefied. "You heard me," said Lucy, and went into her room and shut the door. All right, that is the end of chapter 13. Join me soon for chapter 14. Thanks, everyone. Bye.